Holy sh**. Terrifier 3 starring David Howard Thornton as Art the Clown and Lauren LaVera as Sienna Shaw, in the third movie now of the Terrifier series, and the fourth movie in total, including the Art the Clown character, has been one of the most highly anticipated horror movies of 2024. And personally, guys, this has been one of those movies that I've been looking forward to all year, for the better part of the last year and a half since a third Terrifier movie was confirmed by director Damien Leone. I have been a huge advocate for the Terrifier series and the Art the Clown character ever since that first Terrifier movie came out on Netflix as a low-budget indie horror film, and to see it make its way from just a concept all the way to now a mainstream horror movie is something that I think movie fans in general shouldn't take for granted. When you see things at the box office like The Joker that took $200 million to produce and it's just absolutely flopped. And then here you have Terrifier 3, which originally started out as a movie that was made for about $50,000, now absolutely destroying Joker at the box office. It just shows that it's not about how much money you put into a movie, but what you actually put on screen. Now, of course, Terrifier 3 was made with a budget of $2 million thanks to the smashing success that was Terrifier 2. They had more money to work with, but that's still only a fraction of the money that was put into that Joker movie. And of course, you have Terrifier 3 absolutely smashing at the box office this weekend with $20 million over the holiday weekend. Now, I'm not going to lie to you guys, I actually went to see this movie at the theater 3 times over the weekend. I saw it on Thursday night, saw it again on Friday night, and then one more time on Sunday night. And so I feel like I'm fully prepared to actually review this movie accurately now. And it's very rare that I go to the theater to see a movie multiple times, let alone 3 times, but Terrifier 3 was just that good. And this movie truly was for the fans. And I think that's why I really enjoy these movies, because if you're someone that enjoyed the first Terrifier or even the second, then you're going to love Terrifier 3. And you have to start with the blood and the gore because we get a ton of it in this movie with Damien Leone's practical special effects once again taking display. And that's what's so special about these movies, is nothing that you see is computer generated. They're all practical effects, which Damien Leone has specialized in from the very beginning. And of course, I don't think it's a spoiler at this point to say that this movie absolutely goes for it and pushes boundaries. And that's saying something, given what we've seen in the first and second Terrifier movies. But yes, this movie definitely goes for it. Now, there's been some conversation about, is there something in this movie that could top the bedroom scene from Terrifier 2, or even the hacksaw kill splitting the girl in half from Terrifier 1? And I wouldn't say any of the kills in this movie top either of those. However, there is a lot of blood and a lot of gore in this movie, and like I said, it pushes boundaries. Art kills kids in this movie. Art does some things with animals in this movie, and I understand that may upset some people, but you just have to know what you're getting into before you watch this Terrifier movie. Now, most of you who are watching this have probably already seen it, so you've already kind of become desensitized, and maybe that's why we didn't think any of the kills in this movie, or at least me, in my opinion, I don't think any of the kills in this movie topped the bedroom scene or the hacksaw scene from the first and second Terrifiers, because we're just desensitized to it already, and we're just here to consume more and more gore. Now, I have a little bit of a rant saved for the end of this video that talks about the fact that Art kills kids in this movie and does things with animals, but I will say that this movie tries not to go too far. They definitely tiptoe along the boundary, maybe even step over it a little bit, but you never see any of the actual carnage involving children. You just see the images of the aftermath, and you hear sounds that indicate something is being done to children in this movie. And of course, there's a part in this movie where Art tests out one of his weapons on an animal, but it's a rat, and rats are maybe not an animal that people are as sympathetic towards. So again, this movie tiptoes on the line and maybe steps over it a little bit, but it doesn't go far enough, I think, to necessarily offend anybody. But again, it's Terrifier, so you have to expect the unexpected, and I don't know how you could have watched the first 2 movies at this point and not be okay with the third. But nonetheless, I want to get into more of my specific positives and negatives with this movie. And starting with positives, you can't go anywhere without talking about Lauren LaVera as Sienna Shaw again in this movie. She's simply fantastic in this movie. The emotion that she's able to convey, she plays more of a different role in this movie than she did in the first one. In the first one, we weren't quite sure what we had yet with her, but she really rounded into form towards the end as a lead character that you could really build around in this series, in this franchise. And she turned into a badass at the end of the movie, taking down Art the Clown. But in this one, she starts off a lot more reserved. She has a little bit of survivor's guilt. She's emotionally and mentally damaged from what she went through with Art the Clown 5 years prior. And you really get that a lot throughout the first and second act. And what's really interesting about this movie and Lauren LaVera's performance is that you see the effect that Art the Clown still has on her without actually being around. Lauren LaVera's character and Art the Clown don't even actually meet until the third act of this movie. They don't see each other face to face until the last part of this movie, and yet Art the Clown just has this tight grip on Sienna's life, even from afar. I can also appreciate, though, that for Sienna's character, they didn't lean too hard into the weakened state that she's in for the entire runtime of the movie. She certainly does reclaim her crown in the third act, becomes that badass that we saw at the end of Terrifier 2. And that's something that some movies are guilty of, is leaning too hard into the whole survivor's guilt thing to the point where that character is just sidelined now for the rest of the movie or the rest of the franchise. We were also introduced to some new characters in this movie, characters that you actually care about and want to root for, with Uncle Greg and Aunt Jessica, and then, of course, Sienna's cousin Gabby, who plays a very big part in this movie and is a lot of Sienna's motivation, and will probably be a lot of Sienna's motivation in the eventual Terrifier 4 film that has been confirmed already by director Damien Leone. But I all thought they were placed perfectly into this movie. None of them were too insignificant to where you can take them out in the movies the exact same. They all played an important role, but they also didn't take up too much of the screen. They weren't overbearing. We also get to see a lot more from Vicky in this movie and how she kind of connects to Art and what her lore is. We learn a lot more about the lore behind Vicky, behind Art the Clown, and just the demonology as a whole that surrounds them as entities. And while not every single question that we had coming out of Terrifier 2 gets answered in this movie, I do think we get a lot more of a sense of what Art the Clown actually is, what Vicky is, why she's here, why Art the Clown is going after Sienna and her family. But now the big question that we have is, what is up with Sienna's dad? What role does he play? We get a little bit of a glimpse into Sienna's upbringing and what her relationship with her dad was like, but there's still a lot of questions there. I also love the Christmas aesthetic with this movie. You still, just like with Terrifier 1 and 2, get that kind of 80s vibe, that graininess, that gritty grindhouse feel. That was a lot more prevalent with Terrifier 1, but we still got plenty of that in Terrifier 2, but that definitely is the case again with this movie, and I absolutely love it. That's one of my biggest complaints about horror movies today, and why I still hold a lot of the true classics above them, is because I just think the grittiness and the graininess of 80s films, 80s horror, just has a certain eeriness to it that you don't get with new age cinematography, and I'm glad that this movie stuck with that. I love the Christmas aesthetic. Even the Christmas decorations in this movie are decorations that you would have seen back in the 80s, and there's a mask that Art the Clown wears of Santa, and even that mask, you can just tell, is more of a vintage looking Santa decoration, Santa mask from back in the day, and I just think it adds to the creepiness, and I don't see enough people talking about that. And there's of course that scene with Sienna in the mall when she first spots Art the Clown for the first time, except of course she doesn't actually see Art the Clown's face. She sees what she's pretty sure is Art the Clown wearing the Santa mask, and there's just something about that man that I found disturbing. This movie is also 2 hours long, which a lot of people probably came in a little bit worried because Terrifier 2 was 2.5 hours. A lot of people felt like that ran long, and 2 hours is still pretty long for a slasher film. So people were thinking, okay, what do we have here? Is the runtime justified? And I would say it is. I don't think there's a dull moment in this movie. I don't think there's a certain scene that you could pick out where, you know, you say this isn't necessary. I think every scene was made with a purpose. And of course, a lot of that runtime is because of Art the Clown kills, and I thought there was a lot of creativity in the kills. I don't think this was a quantity over quality situation. There are a ton of quality kills in this movie. You guys will just have to see it if you haven't already. But I mean, the one with Daniel Roebuck playing Santa Claus in the bar, someone dressed up as Santa Claus at the bar. I mean, you're going to laugh. You're also going to cringe. I mean, it is just everything. And so, yeah, I think the 2-hour runtime is certainly justified with this one. And then how can you not continue to praise David Howard Thornton's performance as Art the Clown? He did a great job once again in this movie, really got into the whole Santa gimmick. I mean, there's a scene where he pulls up to a college frat party, gets out of the truck, and is just kind of dancing around. And there's definitely some comedic relief in this movie, too. I mean, the facial expressions are definitely hilarious in this one. There's also a scene where Mia, the podcast chick, is talking about her fascination with Art the Clown, and her boyfriend is like, oh, it sounds like you want to fuck him. And we get a pretty funny moment there with Art the Clown listening in beyond the doorway. And yeah, I mean, David Howard Thornton, just nobody even compares to him right now. I also thought the music in this movie was great. The score is fantastic. That's part of the reason why I've gone to see it 3 times already. I mean, you get the mix of the classic Terrifier music whenever something is happening or in between transitions. We also get a Christmas song about Art the Clown, Terrifier Christmas. I mean, that was really catchy. That's one I'm going to be hearing in my head for a while. And also, when there's scary stuff happening in this movie, we get very eerie music that I really liked and I thought really played into the mood. So, love the score from this movie. Now, as far as negatives, and I don't have very many, but one negative that I would have is the progression of Jonathan's character. Now, while he becomes more mature in this movie and more of the mentally stable between him and his sister Sienna, I thought we could have had more with him, and it just felt like he didn't play a big enough role. And then, of course, the off-screen death, the big controversial off-screen death of Jonathan. And some people have debated whether or not this is a fake out, and I'll give my opinion. I actually do think this was a fake out. Now, that still doesn't make it not a negative for me if we do see Jonathan again in Terrifier 4 and it was a fake out kill, because I still think they could have done more with him in this movie. But if you actually look at the skull, there's one eye still on it, the left eye, right? Now, if you look at the top of the Christmas tree where Uncle Greg's face was after Art the Clown apparently skinned him and put his face at the top of the tree, he only has one of his eyes, his right eye. So I think the skull that they showed in that scene was actually Uncle Greg's and not Jonathan's. Now, some will ask, how did he get Jonathan's glasses? And I think that's maybe something that Art the Clown was able to grab while he was at the college dorms, maybe grab Jonathan's glasses. I do not think Jonathan is dead. Usually the rule of thumb with horror is if you don't see the body, they're not dead. And I don't think Jonathan is dead. That's my opinion as of right now. Maybe some information that we get later leads me to believe that it wasn't a fake out kill, but for now, I think it was a fake out kill, and that's my theory. And then another negative I have, and this is just kind of me looking for something because I honestly don't have that many negatives for this movie. I really enjoyed it. Again, that's why I've gone to see it 3 times. But I want to know more about Sienna's dad, and I feel like they didn't dive enough into that, and I'm sure they will in the eventual 4th Terrifier, but I just have to know more of the context about Sienna's dad, what his obsession with Art the Clown was, and what kind of role does he play in Sienna's upbringing and why she has these special powers and what's the deal with the Valkyrie armor and the sword. I think I have a pretty good idea, but I'm still left with a lot of questions and I can't come to a 100% conclusion. Overall, I really love this movie. It just leaves me wanting so much more. I mean, the ending I thought was fantastic. You get that shot with Sienna in the house all by herself after everything was taken from her, and Art the Clown was able to get away without being killed, and it's going to lead us to, I think, what will be an epic ultimate battle between Sienna and Art the Clown, probably in hell, because that's where this movie is headed with all the religious imagery. But I thought it was great. I mean, I'm a fan of Terrifier already. I came in pretty biased, so I have a pretty biased opinion, but I loved it. Now let's get into my rant a little bit, because I want to go on a little bit of a rant about this movie and some of the reaction and response I've seen about it. A lot of people have said that these movies are no more than a bunch of gore. What's beyond the gore? this is an incredible story that is being written by Damien Leone. Of course, the first Terrifier, if you were to watch that, you would think all it is gore, because that's what Terrifier 1 was. I mean, that's when it was an indie horror film that cost $50,000 to make, and that was just the concept of Art the Clown and Damien Leone saying, here's this character, here's what I can do with him. If I get the money that is needed to keep making these, then I will. And then, of course, we got Terrifier 2, where we actually were given a set of characters to care about, and that is carried over from the second Terrifier to the third Terrifier. And this story is getting really interesting, and I think that ending that we got at the end of Terrifier 3 is only alluding to something epic happening in Terrifier 4. And so I don't understand people saying that. People also keep saying that Art the Clown is an industry plant, which I don't understand, because he's literally the exact opposite. Just because you didn't know who he was before, or you've been living under a rock, does not make him an industry plant. I mean, guys, Art the Clown's character originated almost 20 years ago now at this point, when Damien Leone was putting short films on YouTube with Art the Clown in them, before eventually incorporating that into the movie All Hallows Eve with the short film about Art the Clown, The Ninth Circle. Which, of course, we got a little bit of a throwback to the Ninth Circle at the ending of this movie, which I really appreciated. Only the OG fans will understand that one, because even a lot of Terrifier fans probably aren't aware of the Ninth Circle and All Hallows Eve, because that wasn't even David Howard Thornton who played Art the Clown in that movie. I mean, that's just how long Art the Clown has been around, and so I don't understand people calling him an industry plant. And of course, there's some controversy about this movie because of the limits that they push with the kids and the animals, and I just don't understand the uproar, because you know what you're getting with these Terrifier movies. If you don't want to see it, then don't watch. And also, this isn't the first time that's happened. This also isn't the first time that a horror movie has killed kids. Michael Myers has killed kids. We've seen that even in the recent Halloween remake in 2018. Michael Myers killed kids. Art the Clown originally killed kids in All Hallows Eve. I mean, this is not something that is new. I don't understand the uproar about it. If you don't like it, then don't watch. This has just been an awesome journey for Art the Clown, Damien Leone and crew, and the Terrifier movies, starting out where they did and being where they are now. I don't think this movie should be anything but celebrated, not only by horror fans in the horror community, but just moviegoers in general and people that aren't typically into horror. I think the success that Terrifier 3 has had should make them happy, and it should encourage more indie horror filmmakers, or just indie filmmakers in general, to keep doing what they're doing, because this model can continue to be followed, and Hollywood doesn't always have to be about how much money you put into a movie. So that's my review on Terrifier 3. I absolutely loved it. I want to hear from you guys down in the comments what you thought of Terrifier 3. But with all that being said, make sure you like, share, and subscribe for more content from Show Me Movies, and we will see you all in the next one. Take care.